Leadership is not a position, it's a state of being. The most powerful leaders in history were not defined by their titles, but by their actions, their mindset, and above all, their habits. The world is filled with talented, smart individuals who never rise beyond average because they never develop the internal architecture that leadership demands. You see, effective leadership isn't about barking orders, managing people, or giving inspiring speeches. It's about who you are when no one's watching. It's about how you think when things fall apart. It's about what you prioritize when everything demands your attention. And that's where we begin. True leaders are not born, they're built. Built by pain, built by intention, built by relentless self-discipline and an uncompromising commitment to growth. In the chaos of modern life, leadership begins with one critical factor: self-mastery. Before you can lead others, you must confront yourself. That's what separates the great from the mediocre: the willingness to look into the mirror with no filters and ask the hard questions. Who am I becoming? What drives me? Where am I lying to myself? It's not glamorous, it's not fun, but it's necessary. Highly effective leaders don't run from this process, they live in it. They create rituals that force reflection. They get quiet so they can hear the noise within. They don't rely on compliments to feel valuable or blame others when things go wrong. They own their emotions, their reactions, their shortcomings. That's ruthless self-awareness. And it's not something you practice once a week. It's a daily war. A war against self-deception. A war against ego. A war against distraction. Most people avoid this battle their entire lives. But leaders? They show up every morning like warriors, ready to face the uncomfortable truth. They don't flinch when someone points out their weaknesses. They lean in. They ask for more. Because they understand that what you avoid controls you. And if you're blind to your flaws, those flaws will eventually sabotage your impact. That's why they journal. That's why they meditate. Why? They ask for brutal feedback from the people around them, because they know that insight is fuel. Every new layer of awareness gives them more control, more clarity, and more power to lead intentionally. But it doesn't stop there. Ruthless self-awareness isn't just about looking inward. It's also about seeing how you show up in the lives of others. The best leaders are deeply emotionally intelligent. They can walk into a room and feel the energy shift. They can sense tension before it explodes. They know when a team member is silently struggling or when motivation is dying under the surface. They listen not just to words, but to tone, to silence, to body language, and they act, not to manipulate, but to connect. Because leadership is about trust, and trust is built in the subtle moments. Leaders who are self-aware never let their ego get in the way of connection. They apologize when they're wrong. They ask questions before making assumptions. They listen more than they speak. They don't need to be the smartest in the room. They need to be the most grounded. That's why people follow them. It's not because they're perfect, but because they're real. Because they're consistent. Because they're awake. And that leads to the second unshakable habit: relentless discipline and consistency. Look around at any great leader, any world-class performer, and you'll find the same thing. Their results are not built on motivation, but on discipline. They do what needs to be done, even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it, because they've trained themselves to act according to principle, not emotion. They've designed systems and routines that protect their time, their energy, and their focus. And they follow those systems with religious devotion. They're obsessed with control, but because they understand the cost of chaos. Chaos destroys momentum. Chaos steals clarity. Chaos invites mediocrity. So they eliminate it. One decision at a time. They wake up before the sun, not because it's trendy, but because they want to win the day before the world makes demands. They schedule deep work. They block out distractions. They say no to anything that doesn't serve their mission. This is not a life of balance, it's a life of intentional imbalance. Prioritizing what matters most. Sacrificing what's easy. For what's right? Because they know that consistency is how trust is built. A leader who is inconsistent, one day focused, the next day absent, will never command loyalty. People follow patterns more than promises. And when your pattern is consistent discipline, people feel safe. They know they can count on you. In crisis, you remain calm. In conflict, you stay fair. In pressure, you don't crack. You remain the same. That predictability becomes power. But here's the truth most people ignore. Discipline isn't about gritting your teeth and grinding forever. It's about structure. It's about removing decisions from your day so you don't waste energy on things that don't matter.
Great.
Leaders wear the same outfit every day, eat the same meals, follow the same morning rituals. Why? Because decision fatigue is real and clarity is precious. They want every ounce of their willpower going toward vision, toward strategy, toward people, not wasted on trivialities. This discipline extends beyond time management. It's about emotional discipline. It's about resisting the urge to react impulsively. When you're triggered, do you lash out or lean in? When you're tired, do you give up or go silent and regroup? When people disappoint you, do you punish or coach? These choices define your leadership, and they are built in the quiet moments, the moments where no one's watching. Relentless discipline is choosing growth over comfort. Every time it's easy to rest when you're ahead. It's easy to celebrate early. It's easy to do the minimum and justify it. But the great ones don't care about easy. They are obsessed with becoming stronger, smarter, wiser, more centered, more impactful, and becoming is a daily decision. It's not a once-a-year resolution. They don't wait to feel motivated. They create the conditions where motivation is inevitable. They move first, and emotion follows. They design momentum through movement. The moment their alarm rings, they're on their feet, not because they enjoy waking up at 5 a.m., but because they respect the mission more than their comfort. And that mission is sacred. It's the reason they say no to distractions, to drama, to mediocrity. It's the reason they don't need outside validation. They are anchored from within. And that anchor built on self-awareness and discipline is what allows them to withstand storms that would break most people. Leadership is not about charisma. It's about character. And character is forged in the fires of habit. These two habits, ruthless self-awareness and relentless discipline, are the foundation. Without them, the other habits collapse. Because if you don't know who you are, and if you can't act with consistency, you can't build trust. You can't drive vision, and you can't make hard decisions when it counts. So ask yourself, what habits are you practicing when no one's watching? Are you designing your mind or drifting through the day? Are you hiding from truth or hunting it down? Are you choosing growth or comfort? That's the real measure of leadership. Not your title, not your salary, not your follower count, but your daily choices. Your inner integrity. Your personal accountability. That's where it all begins. That's what separates those who merely manage from those who move mountains. And as we move forward into the next part, we'll dive into the remaining 3 habits that elevate leadership, from powerful to transformational. But remember this, without mastering your inner world and your daily consistency, everything else is a house built on sand. This is the groundwork. Lay it strong. Leadership without vision is like fire without heat. It may look impressive for a moment, but it can't move anything. The greatest leaders are not defined by what they do in the short term, but by how clearly and courageously they see the future and act on it before anyone else believes it's possible. This third habit of highly effective leaders' strategic vision is not about dreaming, it's about architecting reality. It starts not with tactics, but with imagination refined by purpose. These leaders don't just see what is, they obsess over what could be. While others are consumed by distractions and data overload, they zoom out and ask the questions no one dares to touch. Where is the world headed? What patterns are forming beneath the noise? What does this moment demand that no one else sees? Yet they're not reacting. They're anticipating. That's what separates a manager from a true leader. Managers handle today, leaders shape tomorrow. And they do it by developing the mental discipline to think in decades while acting in days. Strategic vision is not about wishful thinking or setting arbitrary goals. It's about aligning daily execution with long-term transformation. These leaders reverse engineer the future. They define exactly where they want to go 10 years. From now, 5 years from no end, then map every choice, every system, every behavior back to that outcome. And they communicate that vision with unshakable clarity. Their team doesn't just know the plan, they feel it. They believe in it, because the leader believes in it so deeply that it becomes contagious. That kind of belief doesn't come from charisma, it comes from clarity earned through hard thinking, deep study, and relentless simplification. Leaders with vision are not all over the place. They don't chase 10 goals at once. They say no to most things so they can say yes to the one thing that changes everything. They organize their entire lives around that singular focus, and that clarity creates power. Because in a distracted world, focus is a superpower. Others chase trends. They build movements. While others are consumed with urgent tasks, they invest in important actions. They don't just build businesses, they build legacies. But vision alone isn't enough. You have to inspire others to join you. That's where the fourth habit comes in: empathetic empowerment. Leadership is not about control. It's about unlocking the potential of others in a way that makes them feel seen, valued, and powerful. You can't do that through domination. You can't do it through fear. You do it through empathy, through presence, through connection. Highly effective leaders make their people feel like they matter because they do. They don't just talk about results, they talk to people. They learn their stories. They listen deeply, without agenda. They create psychological safety so others can speak up, challenge ideas, and take risks. And when mistakes happen, as they always do, these leaders coach, not criticize. They correct without crushing, because they understand that growth is fragile and potential needs protection. That's not weakness, it's strength. The strongest leaders know that fear shuts people down, but belief opens them up, so they become mirrors of possibility. They reflect back the strengths their team can't yet see in themselves. They give responsibility, not just tasks. They delegate authority, not just chores, because they trust. And that trust multiplies. It turns followers into leaders. It turns quiet team members into bold thinkers. It turns average performance into extraordinary ownership. Empathetic leaders know when to push and when to protect, when to challenge and when to comfort. They don't treat everyone the same. They treat everyone uniquely, because they understand that leadership is not about one size fits all. It's about knowing your people better than they know themselves and helping them rise into roles they never thought possible. These leaders don't need all the credit. They shine light on others. They celebrate wins loudly and take blame quietly. They build loyalty not by demanding it, but by earning it every day through consistency, through care, through courage. And that courage leads us to the fifth and final habit: courageous decision-making. Every leader at some point will face moments where there is no clear path, where every option carries risk, where the pressure is overwhelming and the stakes are massive. In those moments, the true test of leadership is not knowledge, it's courage. Do you move forward? Or do you flinch? Do you make the hard call? Or do you wait for perfect conditions that never come? Highly effective leaders don't wait for certainty. They act in spite of uncertainty. They trust their preparation. They trust their values. They trust that progress is better than perfection. They don't avoid risk. They manage it. Don't fear failure. They learn from it, because they know that hesitation is the enemy of momentum. In high-stakes environments, indecision is more dangerous than the wrong decision, so they train their mind to be decisive. They gather input, weigh options, and then move fast, boldly, with full ownership. And once they decide, they don't second guess, they execute. And if the decision was wrong, they pivot. Not with shame, but with speed. Agility is not weakness, it's wisdom. Courageous leaders are not reckless. They're just unwilling to let fear dictate their direction. They know that every major breakthrough requires discomfort, that leading often means standing alone, making the unpopular call, taking the heat. But they do it anyway. Because they serve a higher standard than popularity, they serve the mission. They choose what's right over what's easy, even if it costs them, especially if it costs them. And that's why people follow them. Because in a world of compromise, they are unwavering. In a culture of comfort, they choose conviction. These are the leaders who change cultures, who rebuild. Companies who lead revolutions. Not because they're fearless, but because they act with courage anyway. And that's the final habit that ties everything together, because without courage, self-awareness fades into insecurity, discipline turns into rigidity, vision becomes fantasy, and empathy becomes indecision. Courage is the fire that activates. It's the force that turns principle into power. And when a leader lives all 5 of these habits not as tactics but as their identity, they become unstoppable. Not because they're perfect, but because they are intentional, because they live in alignment, because their actions and values match even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And that's what makes people believe in them. What drives performance? That's what inspires others to follow, not just with compliance, but with commitment. And in that space, in that alignment of character and action, leadership becomes transformation. It becomes legacy. It becomes something far greater than influence. It becomes impact. The kind of impact that echoes long after the title fades, the kind of leadership that writes history, shapes lives, and raises new leaders long after the first one steps aside. That's what these habits create. It's not success, significance. And in the end, that's the only measure that matters.